Well, thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today because Aries kind of wanted to get a podcast going, and he just he wanted to just talk about different things, and so we thought it would be pretty cool to just kind of start with the Exodus people if we could, if they were comfortable doing like a podcast or whatever, and so far everybody's been pretty cool about it. They wanted to do it, so yeah. And so I appreciate your time. It always, I know it's usually only about. This usually takes about an hour, so. But I mean, time is, you know, it's limited. So I'm glad you can make it. So appreciate it. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, can you tell me a little bit about like what your channel is now? Like now you started, like you said, like you were saying, you started off like just kind of drawing,
Yeah,
and that's cool. I first of all, I didn't know you drew, so that's cool
yeah.
to
All the
hear.
paintings that you see are paintings that I've
All
done.
by you, nice, awesome. So that's pretty cool. Do you? Little side note, not that we need to get deep into this, but
Yeah.
do you do that stuff like as a commission or anything, or is it just mostly for fun for you?
I don't purely because I feel really weird about pricing things, and I just like doing them for free. So like usually I'll just give them as gifts to people.
That's cool. And we may talk about this later, but I guess that could be nice for charity stuff as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let us know kind of what you do on your channel now on Twitch. Like, what's kind of your what can we see on your channel, and what kind of stuff do you do?
So right now I mainly do just chatting where I just talk and we just talk about any and all topics that just happens to come up. Um, but it's mainly focused around charity events. Because every single stream that I do is raising money for a different charity. It changes every month. Um, and for as well as that, I'll do like some gaming and sometimes I'll do art. Um, it's mostly chatting, but I've actually started playing Biomutant the last few streams, which is
Okay.
I've been loving.
Good.
So I've been doing that, and then sometimes I'll do art for like charity incentives for donations or whatever. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just a bunch of different games, mainly just chatting and random art at sub points.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. So the biggest thing I'm getting from this, and I mean, it's kind of why we're talking about it, but like you're very big into charity,
Mhm.
which is awesome. I myself, I do the St. Jude's.
Mhm.
It's usually for a month, so
Yeah,
I don't commit as much time. But I do love doing that. It just feels good to help somebody, so I
yeah.
understand. Um, Charity streams though for you are all year, from what I understand, right?
Yeah,
Basically.
basically, yeah.
Okay, and so like, what made you start doing that? Is there's something that maybe triggered that for you, or is that just what you wanted to do from the beginning?
I think I knew that when I switched to Twitch specifically, um, I wanted to do charity streams. I wasn't planning on doing it like fully just everything charity streams, but I wanted to do them at the end of every month. So I actually did a barista course. Um, I think it was the beginning of 2019. And at the end of that, we had done a charity event where we basically just were making coffee. It was basically they just called it a coffee morning, and we raised money for a place in my town that helps people with disabilities. So that was kind of like the first big charity thing that I had done.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, like that was I think that was March 2019. Um, and I don't know, I switched to just doing um, I did 12-hour streams at the end of every month, just to use the full 12 hours to raise money for a different charity every month. Um, and then I think it was maybe October, November last year, so 2020, I decided to go um, fully every day or every stream would be a charity stream, and any payouts that I got from Twitch would also go to the charity of the next month. So So everything, I don't know. It's just I like being able to do that. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. You're not gonna get an argument from me over here. That's cool. So awesome. Well, so when you're doing a charity stream, I want to talk about in particular, like how do you choose what charities you do every month? Is there a rhyme or reason? Do you? I know a lot of people like some of the things they worry about is where the money's going. Is that part of your
Yeah.
selection process? Like what do you do to pick your charities, basically, that you like to use?
Some charities have actually come to me to ask if, like, they've emailed me and asked if it'd be possible for like 1 month I could raise money for them. Which so I picked some for that. Um, but a lot of them come from things that either I have experienced myself or like charities that would help people who do the same things that I do, or um, like people that I know of, even some conditions, like for charities that help people with specific conditions. Someone would tell me about that, and I would know nothing about it, so I'd do some research on it, and then see if there's a charity on Tiltify specifically that would go for that. Um, Oftentimes, like if I can't find a charity or I can't really think of a charity, I'll just go through the Tiltify charity list and just see which ones sounds good at that time or in that moment. Because there's some charities have like a specific month dedicated to them, so I'll usually wait until the month that's like whatever awareness month,
Okay,
and
I
use that
got you.
charity for that awareness month.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so Tiltify is a platform kind of you use for those. That's
Yeah,
cool. That's the only one I've ever used really, but it's interesting to kind of know. I like to be honest with you, I don't even know of other platforms that you could use anyway.
yeah, me
But
either actually.
but Tiltify, I mean, it seems to do well and works well.
Yeah,
And they have a lot of tools, I guess, to help you with the stream, like to keep people updated. So that's
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
well, that's cool. Yeah. So a lot of these charities kind of hit closer to home then, since you, you
yeah,
mentioned that there's some things that you had to deal with or friends or
yeah.
obviously they come to you. So that's really cool. I mean, it's just to think about, you know, uh, I don't know, to be able to I I want to say directly, but it technically is indirectly help something, a cause that you've had to struggle with yourself
Yeah.
is as somewhat comforting, I think. But just helping people in general that need something is obviously great. But that's just like one more step, I think.
Yeah.
Because you're connected. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Well, that's good. So, and we don't have to get into this. If I ever ask you any question you don't want to answer, just
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
fine.
But I do want to ask, what kind of like when you do your charity work, do you strive to hit certain goals, or you just, I mean, obviously you're glad that anything comes in, but like, what kind of goals do you go for on your charity? When you do your charity streams.
So I yeah, like you said, I'm genuinely happy to just get anything. Because sometimes we don't meet the goals. I usually have a set goal of $500 or whatever the currency is for that charity.
Okay.
Um, but I usually have an incentive for the community that if we reach that goal, I get a tattoo dedicated to that charity.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so if it wasn't for COVID, I would have, I think it's 6 or 7 now, but obviously COVID, so I can't get a tattoo right now.
Not yet. Yeah,
Um,
you got a lot of catching up
so
to do.
yeah, I have a lot of tattoos to get. Um, so currently waiting for those. But yeah, I normally set the goal at about 500 to start off with, and then if we reach them, I go up by a little bit at a time. Um, the one that was like the major one was the St. Jude one for 2020.
Hmm.
Um, I made a joke goal that if we reached $5,000, I would shave my head. Granted, my hair used to be down to my waist, so it was 31 inches, and I just shaved the whole thing.
Yeah. Hey. Well, first of all, congrats on meeting that goal.
Thank you.
I do remember seeing the pictures. It was great. And
Mhm.
it looks like, hey, look, it's coming back.
Yeah, it's grown
Remember
pretty
that?
quickly.
Yeah, yeah. That I'm jealous because I was trying to grow my hair out, and mine is not nearly as long, I don't think, and I've probably been growing it for like a year. But
Mm.
uh, I'm an old man, so it takes a lot longer for things to happen. So, anyways, yeah. So that's awesome. So you're on 5,000 at least for
Yep.
that. That's great. Whether or not people donate because they want you to shave your head or whatever, I mean, the
Yeah.
money to the charity is useful.
A
Um,
hundred
I
percent.
I did mine last year. I did not do nearly as much as you did, but I mean, money is money.
Yeah.
Um, I think my goal was $1,000 because I'm very small on Twitch. I don't have a ton of watching me.
Yeah.
But I think we earned $1,500, and that wasn't too bad.
That's pretty
And
good.
I ate a lot of really gross stuff because I'm pretty good at I'm pretty good at being able to do that. It's still not fun, but
Yep. Same.
those were kind of my like incentives. And I think I ate a spoonful of marmite. What's that stuff called?
Is Marmite?
Vegemite. Yeah,
I'm thinking.
Marmite.
Oh,
Yeah,
mm.
Marmite. That's what it was. Yeah, a whole spoonful of that. That was.
Oh,
I
that's so
ate like
disgusting.
yeah, I ate like some. Oh man, what are those cubes called that have flavoring in them? I don't know. There was a lot of stuff I ate that day. I did not eat the toothpaste, but I put a whole tube of toothpaste in my mouth. I think it's
The whole
dangerous to eat.
tube?
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to eat toothpaste, but like I held it in my mouth for like 5 minutes because it was very
Oh my god.
spicy or whatever you want.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Minty.
of gross, yeah, minty. At least that helped, I guess.
True,
But
true.
yeah, so I did that, and it took me how long? You did it for the month, right? You
I
have
did
five
it
thousand
for
goal.
both April and May.
Okay, cool. I that was just a that was a 24-hour stream, and
That's
it was a rough
impressive.
one. It was a rough one.
It sounds
So
like.
luckily, I had a couple of friends there with me. We did like a blind taste test thing, so I put on a blindfold, and then they had like like baby food, pudding. Like there was good stuff in there too, like pudding. Uh, I can't remember all the different things we had, but there was just a bunch of different stuff, and I just had to take whatever spoon they gave me and eat it. And man, that was a fun
Oh,
part too, just because
it
you don't even know what's coming at that point. So
sounds like a meal and a half.
yeah, so that's what. So those were kind of like my incentives. Um, I did shave my legs for that one. So hey, you shaved you shaved hair. I shaved hair,
Nice,
but
nice.
I don't know if I
Good
could
incentive.
shave my head. I'm not sure I could do that. I need some kind of hair up there. I don't know. That's a strong, especially for you having your hair so long. That's crazy. So
Yeah,
you
I
shaved your
had
hair.
never.
Did you donate it, or can I don't know if you can
Yeah,
donate hair.
I think I was only able to donate 24 inches of the 31
They're
because the
like this
rest
is
was
too
like
much.
I say only, but because of like where it was cut off, where it
Uh huh.
had to be cut off, it
Yeah.
was like here or just like here, or like my shoulder, just above my shoulders. So, um, all the rest like up here, past my shoulders, was just shaved off.
I got you.
Whatever
Okay.
everything else was donated. Yeah,
Cool. Yeah. So hey, you got your St. Jude charity. You gave someone else hair, which is awesome.
true.
So I mean, double whammy.
Yep, that's pretty good.
I didn't donate my leg hair, just so you know. I'm just letting you know
That's probably for the best.
now. Okay, well, I really, I would like to do more charity stuff myself. So you're kind of inspiring to me that you use all your time or whatever time you do for streaming, uh, to go towards that goal. It's really awesome. I applaud you for that. It's a very
Thank you.
noble cause, I think, and everybody needs help at some point.
Yeah,
At least
exactly. Yeah.
I think everybody needs help at some point. Maybe I'm wrong, and you got some people who never need help, but whether it's money, you know, mental help, especially these days, a lot of mental
Yeah.
help. I think everybody needs help, and I think it's very important, and it's very awesome that that's what you do with your stream time. It's very cool. So
Thank-
that's awesome. Um, so next up, besides charity streams. We got a lot of stuff because you're just kind of have your hand everywhere, which is fine. It's no big deal. I'm very scatter. Like if you ever see any of my streams, I probably don't play the same game any day. You know, so it's like I'm just
A
playing all
huge
kinds of
variety.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. So, but this same thing in topics. Although to be honest with you, a lot of these things are kind of chained together. You know, if you think about
Yeah.
it in certain ways. So we could talk about a little bit about LGBT, you know, QIA, etc., etc.
Mhm.
And I don't know specifically. I know I want to talk about because this subject is very broad, and we could probably talk about it for
Oh
hours.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I don't want to necessarily do that. But what I want
Mhm.
to know is like for you, um, how does that topic like how does that touch your life, I guess, or how does that affect you? Like what do you want to talk about with that subject? You want to talk about advocation, like you see what I'm saying? Like what would you want
Yeah.
to talk about
Um,
to put on the podcast base?
I would definitely say more of like, yeah, like education,
Okay.
the education side of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's fine. So for me, first off, I'll just say this. I feel like now listen, I
Mhm.
can't say a lot because I am a CIS white male. Okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
so I haven't had any of the hardships that like a lot of people from that community have. So, and I'm gonna try. I'm I don't know how to say this for sure, but I'm kind of an emotional person, so I'm gonna try to stay unemotional if I can.
Yeah, that's yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But in any case, I
Yeah.
really love people. Okay,
Mhm.
personally. So for me, I don't care who you love, you know, who you are, who you want to be. You know, I want to know you and be your friend or whatever. And
Yeah.
I want to say that recently, probably in the last couple of years, I haven't really been. I've been kind of nonchalant about it, which is kind of the problem, part of the problem
Mhm.
overall, I think. And I'm trying to be better about it and kind of advocate because even though again I'm not necessarily affected, I know my friends are because I do have
Yeah.
friends that are trans or going through that process now, especially at like our age.
Yeah.
Because I'm 37
Mhm.
and I have a friend, you know, and I'm not obviously going to mention any names, but
Yeah,
they're
that's
going through that process now, and that's got to be so scary. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't even know like they don't even know how to tell their family, and it's just like there's so much fear there that
Yeah.
I just I could never think like sometimes I'm scared to tell my dad that like I ran out of gas or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a trivial thing that's just like oh that's kind of embarrassing. You know what I mean? Whereas
Yeah.
they're afraid to tell their family because their family might not even talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so
Yeah.
that's just very it just hits even closer, you know, as you see like your friends and people who you love go through that. And so you know, I just don't know what I wish I could give all the support in the world for anybody in that community.
Yeah.
But it's like I have to keep learning and figuring out what to do there, you know.
Yeah.
So
Education is important.
yeah, so education. So like, what type of things is this something you do on your streams as well, or do you? Is there anything you do with like trying to educate people? Um, you know, on your online platforms. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um so I do like because as well as charity stuff on my streams, my content in general, both on Twitch and Twitter, are focused around education for the LGBTQIA plus community as well as the disabled community.
Okay.
Um, so basically, some like I know that I've written threads basically just explaining like specific labels under a certain spectrum, like the asexual spectrum, etc. And usually, if people have questions, I'm happy to answer them as well. I know that some people aren't, which is completely valid. Um, but honestly, I'm just happy to answer any questions. If people like genuinely want to know and they're asking it with an open mind, I'm so happy to answer it if I can. Um, so I usually do that on stream a lot as well.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So, is there like for you, is there anything that in particular that you see, um, that you think is there's an easy solution for as far as, um, like for me, for example, for me, I just and you could probably go back. You probably can't because with these days with Twitch and copyright claims, a lot of people had to just delete all their stuff. But
Yeah.
for me, I know there's just been like phrases that I never thought about that that you say
Mhm.
and they're and you don't think about that kind of stuff being harmful, and then it is, so that to me that was an easy change.
Yeah.
The being educated and learning about, like, oh, these things, are just not good to say, and just taking them out, of your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Sure, people do fall back on, hey, it's a habit, whatever. But to be honest with you, I mean, if you care about it, you can do it,
Yeah.
So that was a small change for me that I was able to do relatively quickly, and just kind of be like, okay, just all this stuff you have to think, you have to think about, you have to rewire your brain, which, hey, for some people, is how that when they were raised, that's what they said, which doesn't make it
Yeah.
right, but the willingness to switch that up, and change how you are. I mean, it's not that hard in the grand scheme of things, as far as as far as
Yeah.
words are
True.
concerned. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, I try to be
I mean, like,
more inclusive too when I speak, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
just use more general terms, just because overall you're less likely to be wrong. So
Yeah.
one of the
True.
bigger things for me is like pronouns, okay,
Mhm.
which is a big thing. um and I get it. Like, it's just like, I don't like people calling me Dave, and some people
Yeah.
call me Dave. Okay,
Mhm.
they don't know that, but obviously when someone calls me Dave, it's kind of frustrating. So I can
Yeah.
totally get people getting frustrated when you don't call them by something that they like to be called. So I get that. And it's important, like you're talking about, for like identity, I guess, as well. Maybe like an affirmation thing as well.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. But anyway, sorry. So,
Okay.
like, easy things, I guess, for me was changing just what I say. And I don't know, that may be a big part of it, to be honest. But
Mhm.
what kind of things do you teach people or tell people about, or educate people in the community? What are kind of like your top things you talk about?
Usually it's, I mean, besides the trolls, sometimes I can actually educate people when trolls come in. But because sometimes a troll will come in because they see the tag that I have, the LGBTQA plus tag. They'll usually just come in and ask like, "Are you a boy or a girl?" Um, things like that. And usually, like, I mean, I'm a cis woman. I'm not afraid to actually just call the hell out of them, but I'll try
Sure.
and do it in like a nice way, because like a lot of people genuinely don't know. A lot
Mm.
of people say things without thinking. They kind of just say it because they see other people saying it and see a reaction from it. But if they come to mind, sometimes I'm not in the mood. Sometimes I'll just ban them and I won't notice. I won't pay attention to it at all. But other times, if someone were to come in and say something like that, I would explain it to them in a calm way, because people are more likely to listen if you say it in a calm way. Because if you say it in an angry way and you start swearing at them, which
Mm.
honestly I see a lot of people doing that, and I 100% get it
Yeah.
because the frustration is so valid. But a lot of the time they don't listen if they're getting yelled at. Um,
Yeah.
so I will try and do it, and they usually end up getting banned anyway because they continue. But it also helps educate people who are just lurking, who
Mm-hmm.
might not have known that. Um, and I have had people like, because I used to, before I moved houses, I used to have my flags in the background. So I am bi, pan romantic, and demisexual, which I can explain for anybody who doesn't know that as well. But I used to have them in the background. People would ask what the flags were, and it was a great opportunity for me to explain what they were as well.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot as well. A lot of people not knowing what the flags were, a lot of people not knowing specifically what demisexual is, which is on the asexual spectrum, which basically means you feel little to no sexual attraction. And demisexual being you only feel sexual attraction if you have a strong emotional bond with somebody. Um, so getting to explain those types of things, even just by having a flag in the background, helps so much. Um, because it also helps people, because been so many people in my community as well as other people's communities that have asked these questions or been like, well, this is the kind of way that I feel, and being able to find a label for them has helped a lot as well. So that's like the main thing that I would do. Just kind of explaining things that people wouldn't normally understand specifically.
Yeah, and I
And
think
obviously, I'm
that,
still learning as well.
yeah, well, and I think what you said there is very true. When, you have to remember that since you were a kid, when someone yells at you, it's a form of punishment, usually.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're right. I mean, yelling at someone, and I get it, being frustrated because some troll comes in and you know, is looking for that attention and, calling you out and, improperly and whatever. You have every right to yell at them. I also
Yeah.
don't. I'm not saying don't, but
Yeah.
when you do that, they're just, they shut off. It's just like being, it kind of goes back to the all the way from when they were born. Like somebody yells at you when you do something wrong. And
Yeah.
so I get it. But I will say, like, I follow a lot of people on Twitter. And I'm not. I'm just gonna say a first name, and you'll probably know who it is. But I love Jeff's clips because
Yeah.
the clips are always.
They're so on point
He doesn't
every time.
always. Yeah, they don't always yell, right? But it's just like
Yeah.
the response. It's just so it's funny.
They're perfect. Yeah.
So, anyways, that was just one of the examples I had. But like, you're right. Just being able to sit down and kind of talk about why that person or educate people why that person is kind of in the wrong. Why they're like what's happening there. Like why
Yeah.
don't do this because this. That you're right. It just gets to a lot more people because you're not, if you're yelling, that just kind of shuts people's brain off, kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
they're mad at somebody, I'll just let it go, by the wayside. So I like that approach. That's a good approach. The other approaches are totally valid. It's just obviously may not get through to as many people,
Yeah.
but they're also pretty good for Twitter clips. So I mean,
True. Very true. Might as well use something from the from the
right,
Twitch trolls.
right, yeah. So well, that's very cool. Well, yeah, uh, it's always been a topic for me as someone who is CIS white male. It's like the stereotype. It's really hard for me to talk about the subject, mostly because I feel like uh, I can't, I shouldn't almost.
Yeah.
Now I know that trying to be an ally, I should, right? But it's just like I feel like if I post something, it's not I don't have that right. Now I don't think that's the intention of what I see on Twitter. I don't want to overstep my bounds, and so that's
Yeah.
something I struggle with. Just trying to figure out what I can put out there to help.
Yeah.
And it may be something at some point. I might hit you up later and say, hey, like what's some things I can do. And I
Yeah.
mean, and this it's probably putting you on the spot. So if you don't want to answer this, that's fine.
That's fine.
Remember, we're recording. We're not live, so
Yeah.
we can always cut stuff out. But do you? It's a good question. Actually, it's just I don't know what the answer is. But what can someone like me, just a CIS guy, like who doesn't necessarily have a tag, what can I do to help? What's like a good thing for like someone like me to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the big question,
Yeah.
for that. So
I think a lot of it would be like, I know retweeting or like helping raise the voices of the community and people, like any educational tweets that you would see, retweeting those, sharing those, things like that help a lot. Even just randomly posting resources, or if you wanted to do going through like the statistics and everything like that, and seeing, because I actually did this the other day as well, and noticing, like, I actually tweeted something about kind of just imagining as a cis person with like just really enjoying life, loving your life, loving the job that you have, and being with the person that you love as well. And then like people just imagine that being illegal.
right.
Just someone finding out that the person that you were with was could end up you could end up in prison or even killed in some countries. And the fact that it is like we are criminalized in over 70 countries, which is wild. But like sharing things like that, even just like, hey, just in case you're not aware of this, this is a thing that's happening. Or I don't know, just resources in general that could help people in the community, sharing things that the community tweet about the topic as well. Anything like that definitely helps.
And obviously, a big thing right now is educating other people like yourself.
Yeah.
Like I know I have friends. I feel like most of my friends are inclusive, but the ones that aren't, I mean, that's been a big thing recently. It's like, tell them, or say, hey, that's wrong.
Yeah,
like
following that, yeah.
try to branch out and get all those people, or hey, maybe they don't need to be your friend because obviously they don't
Yep.
think the same way you do. And
Yeah.
I know, the whole movement, it's been going on forever, right? But it's been getting very, very large over the last year, which is awesome. I'm glad, and there's a lot of issues with the world, with people, I
Yeah.
guess. And but it's very cool to see, like, over the last 10 years or so, just everything kind of explode, and you're getting more and more acceptance, which is great, but it's just not.
Yeah.
It's not fast enough.
Yeah.
It's not fast.
Pretty
enough.
much, yeah.
So it's just like one of those things. You do have people that were friends before or whatever, and they've been friends for so long, and those relationships are hard to break off. But sometimes it's like, what's better? What's better? Just
Yeah.
having this constant struggle with somebody who is your friend, but then at the same time, if you're having that struggle, where's that? How is that friendship healthy?
Yeah.
So it's like you want to inform everybody, that about how you feel and what you think is right, and if, I think that everybody should have the same rights. So
Yeah.
obviously, if you don't, then
We do
what do we
not share
do
the
there? Yeah,
same values.
there's an impasse there, so that's always going to be
Yeah.
an issue. So I get how people are talking about this and how they're like, hey, look, you got to go to your friends and your family, and like, if I just saw a thing the other day, like if your partner is doesn't like whatever it is, anything,
Yeah.
and you're not, and you're still with them, you're not helping,
Yeah.
basically. They're like, listen, like, if they believe totally opposite of you, then what's the point? You know what I mean?
What is
It's like,
happening here?
yeah, so that is a really big one to wrap your head around. I just,
Yeah.
when you meet somebody, you're like, hey, like for someone like me, or I guess anybody, to be honest, do you want kids? That's a big
Yeah.
thing. It it wasn't a question before, like, and I guess it's not a question to me just because I would think that everybody wants everybody to have equal rights,
Yeah.
but obviously some people aren't that way. I guess, and
Yeah.
so those
It's
people,
ridiculous.
it's just mind blowing, to be honest. But uh, you know, that's a question that you probably should ask someone. Like, hey, listen, I love everyone. Do you love everyone? And if they
Yeah.
say no, you should probably not date them, right?
Like, have
But
these conversations
it's
before.
so confusing. Like, like, do you think everyone should have rights to live and like do what they want to do? Oh, you don't? Okay, well, I think I'll
It's
move
like,
on.
okay, bye then.
So I don't
Yeah.
know, but like that's what's confusing. Like you said, it's a very good um I don't know what you call it, example. Uh,
Yeah.
if you're CIS and or whatever, like how would you feel if being married was illegal? That's a simple one that
Yeah.
not even everybody has those rights still, and so it's
Yeah.
just it's kind of frustrating, to be honest, and I understand why the community is frustrated. It makes sense. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't have the basic rights of everyone else. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean, yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, that's why I could not. I had to tweet it about it because it was just running in my brain for weeks. Because someone actually came into my stream and um, basically it was just like, stop shoving your sexuality in my face.
mm-hmm.
I was literally just talking, like sitting here, just talking about some random stuff. And then they just randomly said it. We weren't even talking about the community. And they basically just came in. I'm pretty sure it's just because I was using the tag and they were probably just going around. But um, like the thing is, we get told that just for existing a
Yeah.
lot of the time. Like I don't. It's something that frustrates me so much because I can't even just exist without someone questioning it, why I'm shoving my sexuality in their face.
Mm-hmm.
Even like mention it in passing or anything like that. Even like, because you know the way people talk about celebrity crushes all the time. Um, Even talking about celebrity crushes, I can't do that without people being like, "Why are you shoving your sexuality in me?" But the thing is, like, I will always bring up that statistic that, firstly, we're not shoving our sexuality in there. We're literally just existing the same way that straight people are existing,
Right. Yeah.
um, just with a different gender. Um, but the fact that we are criminalized in over 70 countries is a good indication of why we are shoving our sexuality in our faces. And the same thing when people ask, well, why isn't there a straight pride? It's because straight people aren't criminalized in over 70 countries.
There's not a problem there.
Yeah.
As far as like oppression,
Yeah.
yeah, and I agree. It's funny because that same person probably talks about their celebrity crushes all the time. So it's one of those things,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I
I
don't
see it
know.
a lot with I see it a lot with Apex specifically. Um, a lot of the Apex community
Hmm.
is extremely supportive. They're so supportive. And the legend that I use, which is Bloodhound, which is that one right there, is non-binary. And if somebody comments and says like "he" in the comments underneath their tweet, there's always one person that will correct them. Um, like every single time. I've never
Hmm.
not once looked at the comments and not seen somebody correct the person who used the wrong pronoun. Um, and the same people who are just like, it's a game. Why are you bringing sexuality into this? But if we don't, everyone just assumes they're straight
Yeah.
and cis.
Well, like you
So
said, it's like they're all. That's kind of the norm in video games. So it's like when you
yeah,
don't have the norm, you want to call it out. You'd be like, "This is awesome." look,
Yeah. And the same
some
with
sort of representation, you know.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Because I know like I know that that was huge for the MB community, the them announcing that Bloodhound, like them confirming that Bloodhound was non-binary.
yeah,
Um, like non-binary people don't have that much representation. A lot of the LGBT community don't have that much representation.
hmm
So for non-binary people to have that and have a character in a game that that helps represent them is huge. And the same with Valkyrie that just came out in season 9 this year. In the last couple months, was also confirmed to be lesbian as well. So now there's 5 LGBT characters in the game, which is huge as well.
yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
so it's nice that games like that have that. But then also there's always going to be people who will complain about it. But
Well, look,
it's just one of those
my
things.
philosophy in life, and it's not anything new, okay?
Yeah,
But you can't please everyone. So the
true.
people that want
Very
to be
true.
grumpy about inclusion, like you said, like they should just change their thought process. But obviously, not everybody's going to do that. So
Yeah,
they're just going to have to sit in the corner and be angry. I don't know what to tell them, you know.
yeah. Basically, the whole
So
thing is like evolve with the world, or you'll be left behind.
yeah,
So
that's good.
it's they're gonna be left behind. They're gonna be the ones that everyone looks down on because
Mm.
they're not accepting of everyone.
Basically, the cavemen or cave people of of the new century. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know, it's a huge topic, and like I said, we could talk about that probably for hours.
Yeah, forever. Yeah,
But I really appreciate you kind of answered a couple of my questions, even just because one of those things is I I just I don't know what's appropriate to just openly ask.
yeah,
I always I'm more it's hard for me just because I'm worried about offending someone, you know.
yeah,
But you know, having a source or someone that you can talk to is always great. So
yeah,
that's the first step. So it's very cool. But
yeah.
yeah,
I think
go ahead.
it's sorry. Go on. No, I was gonna say like it also helps to ask people who are close to you because I see a lot of people who will go into streams, even just streams that I'm watch or I'm mod for, and ask very personal questions. Um, like that's definitely not something that you should do. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable answering those types of questions on a stream, but there are some people who are. So I think the best thing for anybody, even just anybody watching or listening, um, just the best advice is like if you know somebody and they are comfortable asking those or answering those questions, they're probably the best person to ask. Um, and even just doing your own research helps as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I've been trying to do that. But that's one of the things. Whenever this was on the podcast, I was like, okay, that's why I didn't ask you anything specifically with you.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah,
obviously, you kind of put out some things yourself, which is fine. No,
yeah,
I don't care. But that was my fear as well. Like, you don't want to get too personal because
yeah,
we're in this. We both do stuff for Exodus, but we don't really know each other. So I just,
yeah,
I did, it's like, all right, well, we're just gonna kind of talk about the subject and see
yeah,
where it goes from there. So I get that. I want to try to be respectful on those. And like I said, I do have a couple people that are close to me that are kind of have gone through that or going through that. So it's
yeah,
good. You're probably right. I just need to ask and say, hey, would you be comfortable like talking about this? I'd like to learn some more. So
yeah.
yeah, cool. Well, hey, yeah, thank you for answering that stuff and
No problem.
kind of going into that a little bit as well. I know like you said, it's kind of one of the things you wanted to talk about. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about some community stuff.
Hmm.
Now I don't know about you, but and just from what I said, you probably can guess, but I love people.
Uh-huh.
Any and all people, I love them. Unless they're hurting somebody else, you're cool with me. You know what I mean? And so, community is such a big thing for me. Like, I would much rather have, you know, 10 people I know very well than have, thousands. Now, listen, I'm not one of those people who wouldn't mind having thousands, sure,
Yeah.
but like it would obviously be harder to get to know a lot of those people, right?
Mhm.
So the connection wouldn't be as strong. But I love community, and I don't know, like for you, I like to try to do stuff on like Friday nights or Saturday nights, and just like a lot of times we'll just get in Discord. Um, I don't think anything can happen to me for this, but we watch movies in Discord, stuff like that. You know, we'll just turn that on.
Yeah.
Everybody will hang out in there and chill and do stuff like that. What kind of community event stuff do you like to do yourself?
Um, a lot of it, I used to do movie nights every week as well,
Mm-hmm.
but because of the whole chronic illness thing, I ended up, it was just too exhausting for me. Um, I haven't actually gotten to do anything for the community recently, but I've been really wanting to get back into doing movie nights and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and usually I'll just do games on stream instead. Um, Instead of doing things on Discord, I'll usually do games on stream, like
Like
Words on
interactive
Stream.
ones. I
Yeah,
gotcha.
like
Yeah.
interact. Yeah,
Yeah,
or like Jackbox or something.
Jackbox. Yeah, gotcha.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
So usually it's those. I actually have, as going back to the whole charity thing, as incentives for the charity um, every $60 or whatever currency for the charity, we'll do another community game. So whether it's like marbles or anything like that. Um, so I usually like to switch between those, but they're most streams at this point. We'll do like one or two marbles games, which is nice.
Yeah, that's cool. The other thing I wanted to throw in here, I see a lot, or there used to be a pretty big stigma, to be honest, back when I was in kind of high school, to be honest. And that stigma was online friends weren't real friends, and
Mhm.
that's still probably a stigma today, but
Oh
less
yeah,
so because
100%.
so many people are so hooked in. But it's still there.
Yeah,
Um, and my favorite thing to do, like I would say that some of my online friends, now obviously they can't be there as much for me as my regular friends as far as physical needs, you know.
yeah.
Obviously mentally they could be just as good friends because
Oh yeah,
you
100%.
talk to them all the time online. And so my favorite thing is I love whenever we have like a meetup. Like a couple of years ago before COVID, we had a meetup with probably I would say one of my best friends now. Uh, Not to overtake my current my childhood best friends, okay, but
Mhm.
still, okay, I have a friend ladder, all right, and they're
Yeah.
not to the top, okay, but what I'm saying is they're kind of one of my best friends, and it was just so amazing. I met them online. I met him on Twitch actually. um he's a real cool guy. We have a lot of same interests, so just being able to actually meet up physically
It's
finally
always
and
nice.
just hang out, it was just really cool.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Have you been able to do that at all with any of your community? Do you and I know some people
Um,
you kind of have to watch out for how how
yeah.
you do those
A hundred
things.
percent.
So,
Yeah.
but
Um,
it was a good experience for me as far as it was like 5 or 6 of us. It's
yeah.
kind of neat.
I haven't done any for my own community. Um, Mainly just because everyone's from all over the world. It would
Mm-hmm.
be so difficult to pick a place.
True.
Um, because there's only a handful that are in uh, Ireland and the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are in the US. Um, but I've gone to other meetups. My friend Trisha, she did a meetup in DC. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe. Um, she called it Trashicon as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, we met up in DC. We were just in DC for a few days. And we just did like went around to like the museums, just walked around DC, got food and everything like that for about 2 days. Um, and that was actually really fun. I met a lot of people there. Granted, there's always usually a case where there's always one person that's just uncomfortable to be around,
Sure.
but
Sure.
especially if it's a larger group.
Oh, is that car alarm?
Yeah. Okay, it's gonna. Um, I was gonna wait for it to finish.
No worries.
Um, but yeah, it was actually really fun, and I know I've met up a lot of internet friends. The first time that I actually met up with internet friends was um in I think 2015. So I just turned 18, I think. Um, and I went to London. And I had only met one of the five people that I was meeting up with, and we all shared an Airbnb, and it was really fun. We were there for like I think almost 2 weeks, um, or something like that. And then I went to the US for the first time a month afterwards with people that I met on Minecraft. Um, and I ended up one of my friends that I had met on Minecraft. I actually ended up being her bridesmaid at her wedding, which was really cool because
Oh,
that's why I went.
nice.
So
Okay, cool.
the
Yeah.
people who say that internet friends aren't real friends clearly don't have good internet.
Yeah, they just it's another out of touch thing you have to think about. It's
Yeah,
just it's
100%.
not. Yeah. Well, that is cool. It's funny because even like my brother-in-law, uh, it's funny because it works both ways. Is what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
My brother-in-law will be out somewhere, and I will call him by his internet handle on accident. You know what I mean? Because I'm so used to
yeah,
talking to him
yeah,
online. So people are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, Brian. I meant Brian, or
yes,
whatever."
yeah,
So it works both ways. It's just funny, but yeah, just community stuff is really cool. I also love coming together and like playing, like you said, playing games with the community. That's fun. Sometimes we'll get on and we'll play just like worms, or we'll do like a Minecraft server and everybody gets on there
yeah,
and plays and stuff like that. So it's always just cool to hang out and do stuff. Have you ever done any like community based streams, anything like that? I know you. I guess you said that you kind of have like incentives where y'all play
yeah,
games, so I guess that could kind of count. I always thought it'd be cool to. I guess what I mean by that is more like, how people have their stream team. I guess.
yeah,
Have you done any collective uh, charity streams? I guess is probably the better way to ask that question.
yeah. Yeah, I have. So I'm in two streams currently, which is Plant Army and Rage Club.
Mm.
Um, and with Plant Army, the St. Jude one that I did was actually a collaborative one. Um, so I can't remember exactly how much we as a team raised altogether. Um, but that was for St. Jude last in 2020, and then last October, November, I joined Rage Club in Screamapalooza, which is kind of like we did like a relay type thing. So I ended stream and rated the next person who was going to be doing the charity stream, and I think altogether we raised £35,000,
Awesome. Yeah.
um, which was really cool. And then we're also doing another one this month as well, at the end of the month for three different charities, which is going to be cool.
That's
Have
cool.
like
Yeah.
panels and everything.
Yeah, I think so I'm not in any stream teams, but I was asked a couple times because
Mhm.
we've done charity streams. Uh, Usually I just do like a 24-hour, right? And that's like
Yeah,
my shtick per se. Uh, I think the first charity I stream, it's actually how I got affiliate because I guess that makes sense.
yeah,
You get a lot of viewers, but my first charity stream was a 48-hour, and it was a LAN event. So like all the guys that we all met at someone's house and all had our computers there. So like it, at hour 30 when I'm like about to pass out, I would just go take a nap on the couch, and somebody else could just have
yeah,
the camera on them, right? It was
yeah.
way easier in person. But that was our first like big charity stream, and then like I've done at least a 24-hour every year. It's not a ton, but
Mhm.
that's what
That's
I've
still
been
a
doing.
lot. 24-hour streams are hard.
they, yeah, and there's some questionable reasoning behind 24-hour streams if it's really worth doing
Mhm.
that to your body. But
Yeah,
I'm a father of three, and I have a regular job, so it's a little bit harder for me
yeah.
to stream. So I like to just try to get all in there at one time. You know
Just
what
cram it all in
I
one go.
mean? But anyway, so I've done some 24 hours, but well, I'm not part of a stream team. There was a group. I think it was not last year, but 2019. They did a 48-hour, and they did kind of what you were talking about, like a relay or whatever you want to call it. They had
Yeah,
like 8-hour time shifts or whatever, and then like they would just raid into the next person, into the next person. That was pretty cool. So
That's cool.
yeah, that there's all different kinds of ways to do that, and involving the community definitely helps. It gives you more hands.
But yeah,
You know what I mean? To
100%.
to achieve your goals. So, pretty cool. And just coming together as a community in general and accomplishing things just obviously makes those bonds stronger.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
pretty cool. So obviously community is important for like what we were just talking about, like LGBTQIA stuff and things we still haven't talked about, like the disability stuff, which I want to get into in a minute.
Mhm.
But like, so for you, like, I feel like community is supposed to be kind of a support system, right? It's other like-minded people, and
Yeah,
so it's important. It's it's integral, I would say, almost to like just being on the internet, just finding those people that have the same. Like everyone in, you mentioned Plant Army. Everyone
mhm.
in Plant Army is so cool.
Yeah,
I
legit. I love them all so much.
and I'm assuming there's a reason for that. They obviously have an application process, but
Mhm.
that's just so cool. Like if you just see people talking about stuff and you go look and see, like, go check out their Twitch and you're like, ah, okay, they're part of Plan Army. That's what this makes sense
That all
now.
makes sense now.
But anyway, so it's just really awesome, just
Mhm.
communities and how you can, just be around people who think like you do. It's awesome.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's talk about that. I want to shift into the disability thing and also gaming with disabilities or whatnot. So, again, this is one of those things where I don't want to directly ask you, but
Mhm.
is that's something close to your heart, I guess, because you want to talk about it. Um, what kind of like disabilities, like what what's the deal with the disabilities stuff? Like personally, I guess, if that's okay to talk about. And
Yeah, anything's fun, honestly.
yeah, and then I guess, do you have others close around you that had disabilities that you kind of had to deal with or help with or whatever you want to call that,
Mhm.
and stuff like that? I have a few comments, but I'm gonna wait. I want to hear from you first.
Okay.
Um, so like, what have you had to deal with? I guess would be the easiest start.
Yeah. So I've been dealing with just different health things my whole life. Literally from the month after I was born, ended up getting pneumonia, bronchitis, at the same time. I think I was like a month old.
Wow.
Um, and I've been dealing with a lot of I deal with a lot of joint issues.
Hmm.
So I'm currently getting tested for EDS, which is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a genetic connective tissue disorder. It basically affects like your joints, your organs, things like that. A lot of people you'll see have like, if specifically with hypermobile EDS, because there's 13 different kinds. With hypermobile EDS, they have like stretchy. A lot of them have stretchy skin. Basically, just a lot of flexible joints, all that. Um, and it ends up causing a lot of pain for me specifically because obviously your joints are not supposed to bend that way.
Hmm.
Um, so mine hyperextend a little bit in those, and then um, I already have a diagnosis of asthma, fibromyalgia, and hypermobility joint syndrome, which is just the hypermobile part of EDS. Um, and in general, I just deal with a lot of things like low blood pressure, um, just a lot of things.
Sure.
So in general, I can't usually stand up for long periods of time, without my legs getting really crampy. You know when you get a cramp in your leg, it's like that, but like my whole legs.
Oh.
Um, so things like that, and sometimes I'll deal with like flare ups where the whole left side of my body goes kind of. The only way I can describe this is if you get punched really hard in the arm, you get a dead arm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but from like the top of my neck all the way down the left side of my body.
Oh.
It will
Yeah.
happen randomly, but that's usually things that I deal with.
Yeah.
So things like gaming with that specifically, sometimes it could be triggered by me overworking my body which could easily just be from gaming or even doing like chores around the house, like emptying the dishwasher and stuff, or standing up too long. Things like that could trigger it. So it's very random, but gaming obviously affects that. So I have things like compression gloves that help with that a lot, so I'm not hyperextending my wrists or my knuckles, and splints and everything like that that help with it as well. So it basically just helps prevent causing flare-ups and everything like that.
Yeah, and it goes kind of back to the visibility thing. I've noticed a lot more acceptance for people.
Yeah.
The bigger one, some of the bigger streamers for that are like the Tourette's ones. Now, be honest with you, I think they may have gotten more popular just because of that, because of the circumstances around Tourette's at times.
Yeah, I
But
think it's
it
because a
is,
lot of people don't really know about it, because a lot of people aren't educated on it, so it's interesting to them.
yeah, and so and like having like clicks and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
but I think it's it's kind of inspiring. So first of all, you kind of mentioned it already. So it's inspiring to me that you have trouble. Okay, I'm not saying I shouldn't say you can't, but you have trouble emptying the dishwasher sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But then like it's actually inspiring on top of inspiring, because then you decide to spend your time playing games, which is fine. That's a pastime, but like you're doing it on a stream, and then you're also doing it for charity. So it's
Yeah.
that on top of that, which is cool. But I know a lot of friends of mine, or friends that I know online, um, have to do stuff like you're talking about, like wear compression gloves, or just seeing some of these guys who like they have, like no hands. There's a
Yeah.
big one. I saw a guy the other day like playing with his,
With his
you
feet.
know, yeah, feet.
Yeah.
Oh, a feet one. There's a guy that plays with like his mouth. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I that is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and being a person who has like all their hands and feet and all that, like I can't even imagine like doing normal stuff, without my hands. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
these guys they're just living their life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they just deal with those things, and the amount of mental will, I guess, to be able to do those things is just crazy to me. So
Yeah. I think that's actually why I love the charity Able Gamers,
hmm
because they actually make things like so people with disabilities can play games like everyone else, like different types of consoles, or controllers made in a way so that they can play it,
right.
basically just to help make games more inclusive, and I love that so much.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I love what they do, and I love the fact that they're helping to make gaming more inclusive as well.
yeah, and it's not just always physical either. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously,
exactly.
you know, like so. To be honest, I don't know a ton about it, but we just mentioned Tourette's, and I'm not sure that's quite physical. It's something more mental, right? Tourette's.
It can be. I know that it is. It is a disorder like in your brain,
Yeah.
but it can be physical because of the like depending on the tics.
The
Because I know
ticks.
that I have tics, even though I don't have Tourette's. I do have tics,
Mm-hmm.
um, which you've probably noticed. But a lot of them are motor tics, which are basically like me moving my hands or twitching my neck or whatever. But some of them can be painful, and so I guess in that aspect it would be physical.
Still, yeah, yeah,
Um,
gotcha.
but overall, Tourette's, yeah, I think Tourette's would mostly be. I think a lot of people with Tourette's or any tic disorders, um, when you're dealing with it, when you first notice it, or other people start to first notice it, it can be embarrassing because people don't really know about it. They just kind of think that you're really weird. And I know that
I know what you're saying.
I've specifically had people to tell me to stop saying things because I do have some verbal tics. Um, that comes out a lot when I'm in um, games with my friends, um, or even on stream as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had people like yell at me and tell me to stop saying things over and over again, but I can't, and they just don't know. They just don't understand.
Sure.
But yeah, and things like that, I would say it's mostly a I think a mix,
Yeah.
an even mix.
I got you. Okay. Yeah. So you were talking about how that kind of affects you, and I mean, obviously, not. I don't have a ton of exposure gaming with disabilities.
Mhm.
I've seen, like I said, I've seen like some of the people online, some of the streamers who had that issue. Is there anything you do in particular to prepare yourself before you game? Like, do you rest up a little bit, like for you in particular, or anything like that to kind of help you keep some of that at ease, some of the disabilities?
Yeah. Specifically, I wear my compression gloves throughout the whole thing. Um, and I'll take them off like during breaks and stuff, so that way I can give my my wrists and my knuckles like a chance to breathe a little bit. Um, but overall, I will just not do anything beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Like usually, if because sometimes I'll play games and stuff of even just like Apex before streams. Um, but if I do that before I stream and play a game, um, then I could risk getting a flare up in the middle of stream and having to stop the stream for it. Um, I'd rather end up with the flare up like near the end of the stream and then end it rather than like in the middle of it or the beginning of it. But in general, there isn't really anything I can do to prepare it because it's so random for me sometimes. Sometimes I could play for hours and not have a single flare up. And then other times I could get a flare up maybe 10 minutes into gaming.
Gotcha.
So it is quite random for me. But
Yeah.
also keeping my room warm because cold temperatures trigger my joint pain. So having to keep my room warm all the time in Ireland is quite difficult because it's always cold here.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I mainly just make sure that I wear my gloves, and if needed, my splints as well. But that's pretty much it, I think.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that kind of makes the 24-hour stream not a thing that you're able to either, I guess, because something like that, sitting in a chair for that long, I'm sure would cause.
Yeah, I make sure because I have a timer going on, every hour to stand up and stretch. But
Mm.
because I have channel points for it as well to get up and stretch. People often will tell me to stretch with channel points, so
That's cool. Yeah.
that helps us a lot. I actually did a subathon last month or 2 months ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, and it ended up being 30 hours.
Ooh.
But I did accidentally sleep for 2 of those hours because I fell asleep when I was only meant to nap for 10 minutes. But it definitely helps. Like you said before, with the 24 hours, having people around as well, so you could take a nap while other people do things, helps so much.
Yeah, sure. That's cool. Yeah, I do have. I think. I think my biggest connection with anything disability wise is probably one of my best friends from high school. Even in high school, he had joint problems. Kind of like
Yeah.
I think now it is rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah, arthritis.
Yeah, and so like he has to go like, and that's the thing I wanted to. This is why I wanted to say this. So he has to go in and like see the doctor a couple times a month, and he has to get this. He has to get an MRI, and he's got to take a shot. So behind the scenes for your disabilities, do you have to do a lot of stuff like that, or do you have to spend a lot of time at the doctors? You know what I mean? That's something a lot of people don't really think about. They see them gaming with disabilities, but then in their off time, there's a lot of stuff they still have to do as far as going to see the doctor and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is definitely something that a lot of people, especially if you don't deal with any health issues or very, very minimal health issues, it's definitely not something that people think about a lot. But
Yeah.
I do go to I have to go to the doctors quite often because usually like some conditions can cause other conditions. So I'm currently still waiting for, obviously because of COVID, test results and getting everything is a very long waiting time. But um, there's definitely a lot of hospital appointments, doctor appointments, things like that. A lot of physio, a lot as well. Like I've been going to physio since I was maybe 14 or 15 years old. And something else that people don't really think about as well. Like I don't, what people say, look disabled because I have an invisible disability, multiple. Um, and it is something that people don't think about, the fact that I'm lucky enough that I don't have to spend any money doing these because in Ireland it's free. Um, but I know a lot of my disabled friends in the US have to spend thousands of dollars on just very small, minimal things, and it's wild to me.
Crazy to think about. Yeah, yeah. We definitely do not have a very good. At least I don't think we have a very. But
Yeah.
yeah, another one of those things. I literally just talked about this last night. I probably haven't been to the doctor in 18 years. Been a long time. So talk about another privilege I have, I guess. You know. Although I did say that I probably should go to the doctor because just because I haven't been doesn't mean I need to not go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think you're meant to, like everyone's meant to go at least once a year for checkups.
right, yeah, for like a physical
but
and stuff. Yeah,
but obviously, like some people can't afford it, which is
yeah,
ridiculous to me. That they would even charge that, but some
it's
people
crazy.
genuinely just can't afford it. They can't afford to even just go to a simple checkup.
Well,
which
even
is
like here,
wild.
you know, to afford it, some people have to get insurance, which also
It's
is not
expensive.
affordable. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I probably, you know, just as an example, and now I have a family, you know, family of five, including myself, basically. So, but it's like $1,200 a month to
Yeah.
cover those people, you know, and so it's like, and to be honest, even individual plans are still like $300 a month, even just for one
Yeah.
person. So it's like it's so expensive even just to insure yourself to then go in and pay just less money. You're still paying money. It's not like they're covering everything. So it's
Yeah.
that's how the system is here, and it's be nice to change at some point. So
Yeah. I think I'm definitely lucky with that because, like in Ireland at least, if you don't earn over a certain amount, you can get a medical card, which basically just covers everything.
mm-hmm.
So like free doctor's appointments, medication, prescriptions are only like 150, as in like €1.50.
Right, I got you. Yeah.
Depending on the medication as well. Like I could end up in the emergency room and stay there for free, get free X-rays, free MRIs, everything like that. If it was an emergency, it would be free either way, but usually you'd have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah.
If it wasn't an emergency, but things like X-rays and stuff, I could literally just have a note from a doctor, a letter from a doctor, and walk in and get an X-ray done that day for free. And it's anytime I hear any of my friends just saying like, yeah, they charged me this much for a simple test, even just a blood test. I'm like, why? Definitely doesn't cost that much to do the test.
You said something there too that I want to ask real quick because it may be a common misconception. That's why I want to ask. You know, you always hear about, oh well, in America we have to pay, but at least we don't have to wait like 6 months in line before you get your treatment, and your leg could fall off at that point. Is that actually even really a thing for like a free healthcare?
Kind of, yes.
Okay.
It depends on if it's an emergency or not. If it's an
Okay.
emergency, I think that they put you on a priority list. I've never had an emergency for it, so I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, or they would charge you, but it wouldn't be like very expensive, like in the thousands expensive. It definitely wouldn't be that. But um, it depends on what it's for as well. Like X-rays, you could just go in as long if it's not a back X-ray, you can go in and get it done that day. If it is a back X-ray, it has to go through a consultant, which usually takes about 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
But for things like MRIs, yeah, it's about 2 years.
Really? Okay. Yeah,
Unless it's an emergency.
so obviously, yeah, right. So with the stipulation of it, being an emergency, you're going to get taken care of, so that's good. So
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like it's a huge deal, but yeah, I see. And you know what? I mean, it just depends on, I guess, where you think the trade off is. The problem is, like you said, people here can't afford it, and then, I mean, some people just die. So,
Yep.
like, that's the alternative. Like, is that what you want? You just want
Yeah.
people to
I mean,
die because they can't afford it? I don't
yeah,
understand. So,
it is wild to me. But the thing
yeah,
is, like, obviously there are some cases that aren't, like, people get stuck waiting when they definitely should have been seen it very quickly. Like,
true. Yeah.
asthma is a huge thing here that people, like, even just a couple years ago, someone went in. I think it was maybe in his early teens, went in after having an asthma attack and was put in the waiting room and ended up dying because he
Mm.
wasn't seen quick enough. So things like that, and obviously there are cases where people weren't seen as quickly as they should have been. Um, but I think in a lot of cases, if it's something like you need an emergency MRI, they will do it.
Hmm.
Things like that. If they don't really see it as an emergency, you'll be put on a waiting list. Um, but it gets
Well,
really confusing as well, just in general.
well, no system's perfect. You know, even
True.
whether
Very
you think the U.S. healthcare is good, or you think any other country's healthcare is good, they all have issues. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it, we, in this on this planet, nothing is perfect. You have to remember that,
Yeah. True.
and that's because everything is ran by humans, and we're not perfect. So it's like, uh, you just kind of have to you got to go with what works for you the best, and you
Yeah.
know. I think it would be cool to change some of our policies here in the United States. You know, whether or not that'll ever happen, who knows? But that's how it goes. So
Yeah.
you gotta go on a wait list for something. That's how it is as well. And like you said, sometimes people do die. That
Yeah.
happens. I mean, that is the thing.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just one of those things. It's one side of the fence or the other. There's always going to be some
Yeah.
issues. So
100.
I got you. Cool. Well, we're still kind of in the disabilities here, but let's switch over to like some mental health stuff, which I guess some mental health can be disability, but
Yeah.
but in general, I mean, just mental health overall is such a big thing right now, and I mean, it should be a big thing, to be honest with
Yeah.
you,
Absolutely.
right? And this is I'm gonna roll these together because
Mhm.
I feel like it's part, but like stream breaks as well. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
in this. We might as well. Um, in mental health, I think for the longest time, and I can even say this even just from as closely as like my parents, even, right? Like it's kind of been a thing that's like, oh, that's not real. You see what I'm saying, for mental
Yeah.
health problems. So it's like, oh, that's not a thing. And we're like,
Yeah.
okay, well then why are these people experiencing these things? Like, to me, it's one of those things. I don't want to get into religion at all,
Yeah.
really. But what I will say is, like, my parents, they believe in God and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, well, you never seen that either. Okay, and you're gonna tell me that somebody standing in front of you telling you they have this issue is not real because you
Yeah.
can't see that, or it's never been diagnosed, or whatever. It doesn't make sense to me. But in any case, there's a lot of very good advocacy for mental health these days, which is great.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on mental health, and like what kind of things do you is that something you suffer with as well? I know I do. I'm very scatterbrained, and I put a lot of pressure on myself, and like
Yeah.
stack a lot of things on myself,
Mhm.
and it's been one of those things where, like, and I don't know what part of me being raised is part of this, but it's been one of those things where, like, I can take care of this myself. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. I don't need to talk to anybody or whatever. But I think it's been I think like last month or a couple months ago, I started talking to like a therapist and stuff like that to kind of help with those things,
Mhm.
which has done wonders, by the way. And
Yeah.
so that's like I, for the people who don't think that that's an option, which like that was me,
Mhm.
years before. It's just like I don't understand. Like, how do we, how do we get that out there? Where like it's fine, it's okay.
Yeah.
People have these things, talking about how, you know, men don't cry. That's like been a big one.
Yeah.
And
Huge.
actually, it's something that's been a part of me for a long time too. Like, you know, in movies, you're watching a movie and it's really hitting you, and you're just like, oh, I
Mhm.
gotta hold back these tears, and I'm just like, this is so stupid. Like, why was this even ever like a thing that was put
Yeah.
into my brain? You know what I mean? And it's like one of those things. I don't mind my kids crying, and I try not to tell them not to cry. Sometimes I cry over things that I feel like they shouldn't, but why is that my choice? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think that's kind of part of it. Like when I was a child, I was like, well, you have no reason to cry, okay? Like whatever just happened, whatever it was, unless I was like physically hurt and like I had,
Yeah.
I had a scrape or something. They were like, okay, you're in pain. But otherwise, like, why are you crying? Don't do that.
Yeah. Kind of
Whatever.
like the stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about kind
Right,
of comment.
exactly. And so again, another thing that starts from like childhood almost. It's like you're taught this from the beginning, and so
Yeah.
mental health overall is just you have to get over this giant hurdle about basically ignoring all your mental issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Pretty
And
much. Yeah.
and so it's so crazy to think about. But those are kind of things for me. Like it just my two main things is I'm just learning to like just let your emotions go. Like allow yourself to feel what you should
Yeah.
be feeling, and not just trying to fix everything yourself, I guess.
Mhm.
Like because there's
Yeah.
just a lot of things where I'm like I feel this way, but I feel like that's just because it's me, and like I don't need to bother anybody with that. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
kind of that's
Yeah.
my bigger issue is like I don't want to bother anybody with any of these issues I'm dealing with. I'll just figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And so those are my things. Those are like my two big ones for me that I've just been trying to, get help for and learn how to change how I approach those things. Sorry.
Yeah.
So what what about you? Like what kind of things for mental health do you find yourself struggling with, you know?
Um, I think my main one is anxiety. I've always dealt with it since I was really young. The same with depression. Um, I think I vaguely remember being like dealing with depression from as young as maybe 7 or 8, um, which is a very strange thing to deal with at such a young age. So I don't remember what it's like to not deal with these issues, which
Mm-hmm.
is also a strange feeling. Um, but I've been going to therapy say for about 3 years. About granted, I haven't gone since COVID because I can't.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mostly deal with that anxiety. For the main part is generalized anxiety and social anxiety. Um, but it's helped. Like since going to therapy, it's helped a huge amount. Like before, I couldn't even call someone on the phone to make my own appointments or order food or anything like that. But now I can, so that's a good start. Um, but with things like depression and stuff like that, they've been a little bit more difficult to deal with. Granted, it's kind of up and down since COVID. Um, like sometimes it will go up really high and then it
Mm-hmm.
will kind of just fade a little bit. Um, but yeah, it's anxiety is the main one I think, and I'm actually currently on a waiting list to see a psychiatrist to actually get tested for ADHD as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is fun.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's a lot. It's there are things that people don't really talk about. They're starting to talk about it a lot more. And I know that ADHD has become a huge topic on the internet recently.
Mm-hmm.
I've been waiting to get to that for years now, but Until last year, I didn't have a doctor who would listen to me. So it's nice to have that finally as well. But for the issues that I would deal with, a lot of people don't understand. And again, the same with like a lot of childhood things, like growing up with the comments like "you have nothing to be crying about," things like that. Um, just a lot of things in general. I feel like a lot of it does come from childhood, or even just traumatic experiences in general. But I've been really lucky with the therapist that I got, like the very first therapist that I got. I know some people aren't as lucky. Some people deal with terrible therapists, and they have to go through a few to find one that actually suits them. Especially for like going back into the LGBT community, finding a therapist that is good but is also uses inclusive language or learns from mistakes and is actually accepting as well is a huge thing, and it's so difficult to find in a lot of places. But yeah, I think overall therapy definitely has a lot as well with that. But I see a lot of people commenting on the whole like especially my guy friends as well, commenting on being like, well, I don't feel like I could talk about this because I've been taught to keep it to myself. And it genuinely makes me sad because I know what that's like in a way, obviously not as a guy, but I know what it's like to be told to suppress your feelings and you're not allowed to show this emotion, because I was never allowed to show any negative emotions like anger when I was younger. So growing up with that, I rarely get angry now, which is not a good thing. In a way it's good, but in a way it's not. But growing up with that mindset, going into adulthood and not being able to express your emotions correctly is so damaging. And I know that so many men go through this. And it's something that I talk about a lot as well, especially on Twitter. Even just like the validation posts help a lot, I feel, or I would hope. Because I know so many of my guy friends don't talk about it. They don't talk about their issues. They don't go to therapy. They don't do anything like that. And they kind of just keep it to themselves, and it just gets bottled up. And it severely affects your mental health that people don't even think about. And then when they finally crack, they're kind of just like, well, what do you mean? Your life is good. I don't know what your issue is. Which is exactly why people suppress it and keep it to themselves.
Right. Well, and you mentioned this. It affects your mental health, but it does affect you physically eventually as well.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things, and it's funny we talk about this, and I said it earlier, and I'm just thinking about how ironic it is. But I was talking about earlier. I was like, hey, I'm gonna try to keep myself together on some of these topics just because they hit me closer to home than I think. So just right there, technically, mostly at that point, I'm suppressing just so the podcast can be like good and it's not just like somebody crying in the corner for a little while. But it's just it's one of those things. We have to get better. It's another inclusion thing, I think. Accepting people for who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's fine to cry. It's fine to tell people what you feel. Like, we just have to get past the thought that we don't need to say that stuff. Or it's basically also a form of stereotyping. It's like, well, if you do this, you're not a man's man or whatever it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like those things. Who cares? Like we don't need that definition. You know what I mean? Like that does not need to be defined as that's just one of those things that needs to be broken off, basically. So it's just there's a lot of learning and a lot of changing that still has to be done. Every time you talk about any of these subjects, it's just like there is so much more that we need to do as a people. It's just crazy to think about.
And I feel like a lot of it is people not calling out other people for saying those things, saying things like, well, why are you crying? Because I feel like if you're If you're crying, you're crying for a reason. And if you're crying over a very small thing, it's probably because you're so overwhelmed by other things, and keeping everything to yourself and not mentioning it or talking about it at all is building up. So if you're crying for a very, very small thing, obviously it's something that you need to talk about. I feel like that's sort of thing. Like people get angry at people who get sad or cry at small things, but don't actually think about, well, why are they actually doing? Why are they getting so upset about something that's so small?
Right.
And
It's
I feel like it's a
important.
discussion, something that everyone needs to talk about more.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's important. It's one of those things that I realized, like for kids, especially like my kids, when one of my kids is crying, you have to think about like you don't think the same way as a kid does. You know,
Yeah,
to be honest with you, you don't think the same way as anybody else does.
yeah,
Okay, everybody's different. So, uh, it's one of those things where I've been bad. I've definitely a couple times been like, I don't know, like, why are you crying? But like,
hmm,
I wanna still ask that question. I just want to make sure I say it correctly, so that they
yeah,
know that I want to know, like, what do you need? Like, do you need something?
yeah,
What has happened that has caused this? Obviously, you just got in trouble, but like, there's something that's causing you to have some sort of grief, and like you said, it's a buildup. It's not necessarily that one thing that just
yeah,
that just triggered the crying. You have other things that you need, that are haven't causing you issues, basically.
yeah,
Yeah, it's important. 100%.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Beep, beep, beep.
the I don't know, if you have anything else you want to talk about before we end this. This has been a very I don't know what to call it. Like, it's been very intense. Like, not that it was meant to be, but it's just when you talk about any of these things, it's hard not to be more
Yeah,
intense. You know what I mean? And that's just because it's true. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of things that still need to be done. So much work
yeah,
that needs to be done in all those aspects. And so it's hard on the brain. You
yeah.
gotta
Things you
and
got to
come
think
to
about.
yeah, and come to realization about, like you said, like, if you could get arrested for walking down the street, which, guess what, people get arrested for just walking down the street. It ain't anybody who looks like me, but what I'm telling you is that's a thing. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like,
Uh,
it's crazy to think about it in that aspect, and I'm so glad you brought it up that way. Like, what if you get arrested for getting married? Like,
mhm.
that's like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but guess what? It happens to people every day,
Yeah,
and that's for literally anything you could think about at this point. And so it's just that kind of thought process. Once you start thinking about everything that you do during the day, and that somebody probably gets in trouble for it because of their, whatever it is, sexual preference, race, anything,
mhm.
that just happens to them because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's so it's just it's disheartening, to be honest, but
mhm.
it's definitely something that obviously we got to keep talking about, and just put stuff out there, and change as much as we can, as much as we have the power to change. We talked about, talking to your friends, like, what can you do to help, as a even if you don't suffer from any of those things. You don't
Yeah,
have any of those issues because you're, quote unquote, and I'm definitely quote unquoting this, normal, okay?
mhm.
Because everybody in my eyes should be normal. Like, there should be not an abnormal. But in any case, that, it's just, we're almost done. So, uh, anyways, so it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's a big mental thought, that
Yeah,
you got to wrap your mind around, and that's what makes these conversations always so taxing, to be honest,
yeah,
mentally taxing. I'm very glad that you were cool with sitting down and talking to us, on the podcast.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and it was great, all the topics you brought up. I mean, to be honest with you, each one of those topics we probably could do another podcast just on the one topic because there's such big things, you know.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to say, you know, on the podcast?
Not that I can think of.
No worries. Yeah, you don't have to.
My mind is blank.
Well, again, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being here, Becca.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to join.
Yeah, you definitely gave me some things to think about as well, which is great. That's
I'm
the
glad.
best part. Yeah, the best part about doing a podcast. You know what I mean? So
yeah, 100%.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
And I guess I'm hoping I talk to you more often now that we've
yeah,
kind of
100%.
met. I'm gonna be sending you some stuff. I'll be like, hey, what help me out here if you're cool
absolutely.
with that.
Any questions? Feel free to shoot me a message.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate it, and until next time, guys, we'll see you on the next podcast.